I am Abby Rose. I'm the CEO at Vidacycle. Welcome, everyone. We make apps that support observation as a key tool for understanding what works on a specific farm or vineyard. Many of you may already use or may be familiar with Sector-Mentor, which is our app specifically for vineyards. Sector-Mentor makes it easy to predict yields, monitor ripeness, understand soil health and biodiversity, track vineyard activities block by block, and much more. In essence, Sector-Mentor is about supporting regenerative viticulture. And at Vidacycle, we're committed to building ecology, profitability, and beauty on farms around the world. And we're always exposed to amazing stuff that's happening, but not enough people get to hear about that. So this conversation is really about connecting up those conversations we're having and sharing that knowledge and highlighting the work of last week it was Mimi and this week it's Sergio as brilliant resources if you want to take a more regenerative approach. So please do ask questions in the Q&A. In the Q&A and not in the chat, ideally. You can build them up, or they'll build up throughout the conversation, and then about the last 15 minutes, we'll come to the questions. Yeah, and if you want to upvote a question, please do, because we will use that to decide which questions to go for at the end. And that's everything. So now I want to say it's just such a pleasure to be here with Sérgio Nicolau. We first connected online during the pandemic, and I was immediately humbled by Sergio's extensive understanding of plants and soils, coupled with your very open-minded and curious attitude in, how can you maximize ecology and profit on your own vineyard? And I think, yeah, it's really amazing to watch everything you're doing. And I'm really excited to talk to you today. So Sergio, maybe you could share a little bit about your vineyard and your background to get us started.
Hey, Abby. Hey, everyone. I'm Sergio from Portugal. I'm a fifth generation farmer I'm very close to Lisbon. I'm like 10 kilometers from the sea, which is a very good thing. But in terms of plant diseases and something, it's not very good, but it produces a very, very good wine here. Yeah. So I was born and raised in the farm, and I always helped on the farm, and I studied agronomy, and I work as a farm manager for many years in viticulture, but not only viticulture, also in production in the winery, and also in animal production like cows and sheep. And as years passed by, I thought that things were not going so well with the environment, so things were changing, and we had loss of water in our properties, and loss of biodiversity. Everything was just running off, and the erosion. And I wanted to go to the root causes, and I wanted to start thinking about what was causing this problem, and I realized that it was it was a direct consequence of our farming practices. So, I took some courses in organic agriculture, and in 2017, my father wanted to retire, and we thought, and he wanted me to take over the vineyards, and I thought that was, and I always worked in conventional agriculture, but I thought that was my opportunity to change things around here. And I started implementing. That was the tricky part. It was convincing my father to go organic. But at first he told me, well, why don't you start only with a little plot, not very close to the streets and then to the road, so nobody sees. But I told him, no. We are going to go all the way, and all the area was converted to organic in 2018. So it was a ride, and then I had some issues with diseases and in plants, and loss of yield. And I thought that wasn't enough, and then I started to study more, and I found people like John Kemp, Gabe Brown, Ray Archuleta, Nicole Masters, and turned my head around, and I started studying more and more. And I started immediately applying those regenerative practices on the field and on the vineyards.
And when was that? That was in like 2020?
2019, I think.
19.
Yeah. In the end, yeah.
So you've been doing it for about 4 years now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Great. Well, yeah, and I mean, obviously, that's a brilliant journey to go through. You've been on the journey for sure. And I think when we were talking about this, one of the first actions you took, I mean, they were sort of concurrent, but one of the key first ones was really looking at seeding some cover crops and covering up between the vines and seeing what difference that made. So yeah, maybe you could tell us a little bit about, like, you know, what kind of mix did you use? How did you choose the mix? And what did you start seeing?
So I was already doing some covers, but then I started to realize that it wasn't enough. I had to seed more things. In the first year, I seeded like 12 different species, but only from like 3 different families from plants. And in the next year, I seeded like 16 different species from 6 different families. So like grasses, like ryegrass, and black oats, and legumes like 4 different clovers, alfalfa, vetch, also brassicas like mustard, turnips, radishes, also polygonaceous like buckwheat, which is a magnificent plant, amaranth like beets, spinach, aceraceae like calendula, and flowers, other phalaces like phacelia.
Got it.
Yeah.
Maybe I should share.
And it's very important because plant cover will slow down rain when the water falls through the leaves and stems.
Mm-hmm.
And the different root systems will allow soil to decompact and hold together, decrease erosion and nutrient loss, open spores, and create structure that will allow water to infiltrate much faster. So it's amazing.
And so, sorry, go on.
And if you have bare soil with lots of tillage, you created a compaction layer and have a permeable layer in the soil, and then the soil will go and take the nutrients, and the soil will go away to the rivers. So,
yeah, I'll show the picture of the before you started doing the cover cropping.
Yes,
it's quite different.
Yeah.
To the after, and because you said that you were doing some cover cropping before, and you started out with the less diverse mix. And then, do you think, has the more diverse mix really made a difference? Are you really seeing that changes things?
Yeah, it changes a lot because with different families and different species, you have not only different root systems, like more profound and some more shallow, and that's very good for water infiltration and to create soil structure. Mm-hmm. And to hold water, yeah, also.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And maybe you could, I'm just going to stop sharing because it's a little bit distracting to share at the same time. Sorry. Hope people got to see things. Yeah, maybe you could tell me, I know when we talked a little bit about how different plant species, some can be disease enhancing, and some can create disease enhancing soil, and some can create disease suppressive soil. Yeah. So could you explain more about that to me, and what does that mean?
Well, it all starts on the photosynthesis. So it's the end product of photosynthesis is sugars, and the more species you have different root exudates. The sugar flow for 3 main things: the root, the shoot tips, the growth of the plant for the fruit, and the excess goes to the root. So the more photosynthesis you have, the more sugars you have pumping to the roots, and it's very important to feed the biology around it. So different plants feed different biology, and it's all this diversity is very important. We have different kinds of bacteria, fungi being fed by different root exudates.
Got it. Okay, interesting.
And also to create more stable organic matter, because the most stable organic matter comes from the carbon from the roots, and from all those bacteria, all those microbes that die, and the more stable is the necromass that my friend Harriet Miller tells me about many times. That all this biomass of microbes, it's the more stable organic matter you can have. And we also know that in average, if you add 1% of organic matter to the soil, we'll retain more 2,000 liters of water per hectare. So it's very important. Totally,
no brainer.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Also, the redox potential about the roots, it's important. I don't get into that, but I recommend to see the work of Dr. Olivier Olsan. It's a French investigator, scientist. There are some great podcasts with him and John Kempf, and you can tap a little bit more. Some plants are more with the reducing, and some plants are more oxidizing. And the more oxidizes the soil by tillage and by fertilizers, the less, the more disease enhancing the soil is. So, yeah.
And so when you're, when you're thinking about a cover crop mix, are you choosing some of the plants based off of knowing that this will have a more reductive effect, or this will have a more oxidative effect? How does it play into your decision making?
Yeah, so things like OGM modified species are also always more oxidizing. Some of them are more reducing, like the clovers and the black coats. It's a fantastic plant, like brassica, like mustard. It's very good. Also, we have to be careful with mustard, because if we see too much, and I made that mistake, we have also to share mistakes, right?
Absolutely.
Too much in the first year in the mix, and it totally dominated the mix, and I had to cut it all because I didn't want to hurt the other plants, so that I had to cut it all by hand with a chain. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the next year I was more careful about it, and half a kilo of seed of mustard is more than enough.
Got it. And maybe you could just tell, I've also got a photo here of you establishing your cover, because I think this is also something, a lot of people have a lot of trouble establishing covers.
Yeah, so
yes,
this is a seeder. This one is not the direct seeder, so we had to make a strip till of the soil so that we can make ground for the seeds to establish. The first year I made it every other row because when the mix was establishing, the plants were establishing, I didn't want to go in it with the tractor, so I did it every other row. And the next year I did it in the other row that wasn't this one.
Got it. Great. And have you ever had trouble establishing cover crops, or have you always been relatively successful?
Well, when you use so many species on a mix, and I did it on purpose because I wanted to know which of them would be successful. Some of them will thrive perfectly, but some of them will not. And now I've learned enough to know that the next mix will be different, and maybe I don't have to put so many species, but the right ones. Yeah. And also, I think cover crops are a very good tool to start to give a boost to the system. But then the natives come also, and it's like a natural succession. And yeah, sometimes the natives are very good because they are more resilient. Yeah,
more attuned. But I mean, amazing that you're in a very drought-prone, low or arid environment, and these kinds of covers are coming through.
Yeah,
it's lush. Looks so lush.
It is. And it also attracts, it's very good also to attract insects, beneficial ones that will help us to attack the bad ones.
Yeah, totally.
Our pest.
And I know alongside this, concurrently, you started to do some nutrition testing. And so maybe we could just talk a little bit about that. I'm just going to stop sharing again. Yeah, like I remember you told me one of the key moments, and maybe this was part of what convinced your dad also that regenerative was a good way forward, was that you were starting to measure sap levels in your plant. And then I can't remember exactly, but you applied some molybdenum and you saw an almost overnight effect on your crop. Maybe can you share a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so nutrition is a key factor to plant immunity, and we know many things now that we didn't know before. I didn't know before, and they are like us. The best nutrition they have, the more balanced nutrition they have, the more resistant they are to insects and pests and diseases. Mm-hmm. And my aha moment was when I had an attack of an insect. It's like it's called Altica. I don't know if it's the word in English. It's like a little bug, a black bug that feeds on the leaves. And I was listening to some podcasts about nutrition, and I took some courses with John Kemp, for example, and he's got some magnificent courses for people to have. And one of the things that I heard about it was to change the nutritional profile of the plant so that we can reduce nitrates and the simple sugars. And we know that insects have a very, very simple digestive tract. It's they cannot feed on protein like as humans. We cannot digest fiber. They cannot digest like a raw meat, for example, and they cannot digest complete proteins and amino acids and complex sugars. So what I did was, as we know that molybdenum, for example, is a cofactor for the enzyme nitrate reductase. It's because it transforms the nitrates in amino acids and then in complete proteins. As we do that, the insects, they stop looking at the plants like food because they cannot feed on them. It's like insects are the garbage collectors of nature. They come and take out of the system plants that are not healthy. So if we have really healthy plants that don't have nitrates and simple sugars that are photosynthesizing well, they will not look at it as food. Mm. So what happened was that, well, my father came to me and they said, "Oh, we have an attack of Altica in the Phenompyrus. That the Phenompyrus is a grape variety we have here, an old vineyard that we have, and historically it has always have some problems." And he told me, now we are on organic, we cannot apply insecticides, and are we going to do it? Well, we can apply insecticides in the organic. There are some allowed ones, but I didn't want to do that. But I didn't tell him anything. And I applied sulfur, molybdenum, and magnesium as nutrients. Sulfur as nutrient, not as a fungicide. And the next day, I think 2 days after, we came to the vineyard, and the insects were not feeding on the leaves. They were not there, but they were on the weeds around the vineyards. So yeah, they were not a problem anymore. They were helping me with the weeds. Yeah,
amazing.
That's it to see.
Yeah, I mean those kinds of experiences. It's like, wow, okay. That's a miracle. And I guess, yeah, so from there, how did you then, like, obviously that was a moment where you could see that actually monitoring the nutrition profile and then responding to that was a good way forward for you. So maybe you could just say a little bit about how do you do that? I know you do some sap testing quite regularly, and then you use that to decide what to apply. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct. One of the things I was started to do 2 years ago, 2 years and something, was to send to the Netherlands to plant leaf samples, so that we could see they extract the sap of the plant, and they give me a report of 24 different parameters to analyze. And it's not only nutrition; it's also sugars, electroconductivity. You can see here, yeah. Also sugar content, pH, electroconductivity, potassium, calcium, the macronutrients and the micronutrients. But that is, we all know that the macronutrients are very important. So that's why we also play a lot with the NPK fertilizers. But the micronutrients are very important also, because they mainly are the cofactors for many enzymes that regulate everything in the plant. So they are very important. Yeah. You can see here, for example, we like the potassium, and now we have an excess of the potassium. The excess are even more important sometimes than the deficiencies. If we have a potassium excess, for example, it will block other cations like calcium and magnesium. And the first thing we have to do is stop applying it, so that the other ones can rise on the levels. We also have here nitrogen. Nitrogen is not only nitrogen. We have 3 different forms of nitrogen. We have nitrates, ammonium, and total nitrogen. That is also the organic nitrogen. Here we can see that we have some nitrates here. I didn't apply molybdenum, because if you go down, you can see that the molybdenum is very low. But when we apply, for example, molybdenum, it will activate the enzyme that will reduce nitrates, and then we have less problems with diseases with insects.
And just to be clear, so the dark green line is the old leaf, and the light green line is the young leaf.
Yes.
And so here, what we're seeing in the potassium is, sorry, go on.
It's the flow of the nutrients in the plant is very important also. Here we can see that the new leaf, the new leaves have a higher percentage of potassium. It's very mobile, so we did this difference. Supposedly we would have an imbalance, but it's not very preparing here, because it's I have too much.
Yeah, got it. Great. And so you use this to then decide what different nutrition you want to apply. Yeah,
sure. Sometimes it's knowing that sometimes we just don't have to apply it. We know that some nutrients are synergies between them. Like there's a very important one, that a synergy between calcium, silicon, and boron. Sometimes if you apply only one of them, the 2 other ones will rise the levels. And for example, manganese. If you have right manganese is also very important for photosynthesis. Is the responsible for the water hydrolysis in the leaf. So it splits the molecule, the water molecule, in H and OH. It's very important for photosynthesis, and it also regulates the quantity of potassium. It down-regulates if it's in excess, and it up-regulates if potassium is low. It will help the plant to absorb it. Yeah, there are many things that we can take from a plant leaf sap report. Yeah.
And so, do you? Throughout the season, this is always changing, and you're responding to it. And I'm always curious, like in the long term, my understanding of this is that you're using this to maximize your plant's health right now. It's a very short term kind of approach, but with the idea that by maximizing your plant's health right now, you're maximizing the photosynthesis, you're maximizing the ability for that plant to function. So, and therefore building soil health faster, with the idea that in the longer term, you won't have to apply as many things because it will be working on its own kind of rhythm. Is that fair? Is that how you think about it?
Yeah, it's very fair. It's like a feedback loop, because if the plant goes more and more healthy, the more biology it will go feed, and the more biology you create on the soil, the less you'll need these kinds of nutrients. So yeah, it's very important.
Yeah. And also the other thing I know we've discussed is in terms of like your neighbors and people who aren't as convinced by taking a more ecological approach, let's say. This is actually often a very interesting way to start because it's still kind of coming from the input mindset in a way. And it allows them to almost increase their yield often and increase their productivity in the short term, whilst reducing other like herbicide, fungicide, other, killing inputs that they may have used more frequently before. Is that fair as well? Is that your...
Well, yes, I don't apply many nutrients to the soil. One of my favorite things is to apply foliar. It's much more effective. Mm-hmm. It's like 15 times more effective than to the soil. To the soil, I apply like some more punctually some organic matter and some composts. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And soil, what I do is apply mostly biology. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to make some corrections for if I have compaction. I can use, for example, some calcium, like gypsum, or in my case, because the pH of the soil is very high, I cannot use lime because it will get the pH even higher. So gypsum, for example, it's neutral, and it will help me like to loosen the soil. It's one form of decompaction. Got it.
Great. And actually, going on from there, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, I know that you are extremely good at making your own inputs. So both biologicals and some of the nutrients or nutrition we've been talking about. Maybe, because part of being regenerative is actually reducing your costs and reducing the cost of inputs. And I know that you definitely have done that. And one of the ways you've done that is by creating your own nutrition. Maybe you could explain a little bit about how you do that. And is it something that most people could do, or is it actually quite complicated?
Well, it's actually very simple, but we have to study a bit, of course, and get some recipes. But yeah, I use plant extracts like horsetail. It's very rich in silicon, for example, and it also acts directly on the fungus. It's like it dries the leaves also, and like seaweed extracts. Mm-hmm. It's very nutritious, and have very much nutrition and also hormones that are good for the plant. I use fish hydrolysate. It's a very good source of protein and to the leaves, like organic nitrogen. Mm-hmm. Also shrimp extracts that are very good, like immune elicitor. All of these are immune elicitors, not so much fish hydrolysate, but horsetail is a very good immune elicitor. And also shrimp extracts that give me chitosan is very important.
Shrimp. Are you saying shrimp, like prawn?
Yeah, prawn. Yeah.
Shrimp extracts. All right.
The shells.
Uh-huh.
They are very rich in chitosan. It's very important for the plant immunity.
Got it. And so.
And I also I also buy the bags, which is I stopped buying commercial products of different micronutrients, for example, that are very expensive, and most of the times we are only buying water and just a little bit of nutrients, and very expensive. So what I do is when I get the reports from the sap analysis, I know exactly what the plant needs or not. So what I do is I buy bags of, for example, magnesium sulfate, zinc sulfate. Always on the sulfates, it's very important the form of the nutrients that you buy. And I never buy the oxidized form of the nutrients because the plant will not utilize it so well. So and I chelate. I do my own chelations at home with carbon sources like fulvic acids. Mostly fulvic acids, so like some nutrients like more not humic acids, but mostly fulvic acids, molasses and seaweed extracts. Yeah.
Got it.
I also may make my own seaweed extracts at home with Korean natural farming techniques. It's very easy. You go to a beach or something, and we see those seaweed that come to the sand. Nobody will do anything with it, and you can take it home, and you put like one part seaweed and the other part brown sugar, and you put it in the glass container, and you have done the extraction. 10 days later, we go there and you use it.
Wow, that easy.
That easy, yeah.
And so, yeah, let's maybe talk a little bit about what you mean by then do the extraction, because I think that's a little bit of a magic for people as well. Everyone talks about this, but what is it? Like, can you maybe explain what do you mean by do the extraction?
Well, in this case, it's like difference in potential between the sugar and in the interior of the cells of the seaweed. And because it's the difference in I don't know how can I explain it in English. It's hydrolysis. The nutrients go to the sugar because it's the difference in potential in the
osmosis.
Osmosis, yeah.
Or osmotic. Well, I guess that's how water moves. I don't know necessarily.
Exactly.
Anyway, we understand. Yeah, okay.
It's another word that I cannot find it now.
That's
fine. And I'll tell you. Yeah.
And so then, and because you also said that you make fish hydrolysate as well yourself. How do you make that?
Well, there are two ways of doing it. You can well, either way. I go to the fisheries around me, and I go and I get the fish waste from them, like the heads and the guts, and some entire fish that they don't want to use. And we have two ways of doing it. One of them is I shred it with the machine, and then I add some water and some molasses, and then some lactic acid bacteria that will help to decompose that fish. That way is very smelly. It's not very good, but you can do a large portion of it. The other way is also like the seaweed. It's like a Korean natural farming. It's equal weight of fish and brown sugar, and you put it in a container, and it will also decompose. That one doesn't even smell. That one I use more to the leaf, to the plant leaves, foliarly, and the other one I use more for the soil, because the fish hydrolysis is not only good for the leaves, and it's like a very good organic nitrogen source, like in protein form, high quality. It's also has fats. It's very good to feed the leaves, but also very good to feed fungus, because it's fats and protein are the fungus most appreciated food. They love this kind of high quality protein and fats, like lipids.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so because often people say, a vineyard inherently is a more, or you want to aim for a more fungally dominated soil. But often the question to get asked is like, well, how do you go for a more fungally dominated soil? And I guess feeding the fungus with fish hydrolysate is one of them.
Yes,
One of the ways.
it's not only that, it's not as a silver bullet, but it helps a lot because with all these years of tilling and applying chemical fertilizers, the fungus go away, the good ones, and I have the soil completely dominated by bacteria, bad bacteria mainly. So what I have to do is balance. We know that now that the good ratios for fungal to bacteria is 1-to-1.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 or 5-to-1 or 10-to-1, even better. So what I do is not only use fish hydrolysate, I also use the Johnson Su extracts that are very fungal dominated. Johnson Su is a very good technique of compost. It was developed by a scientist named David Johnson and his wife.
There we go.
Exactly. These tubes are here for 24 hours, then I take them off, and the hose will stay there, and it helps aerate the compost. Yeah. So that's my native biology. That's the one that I want to keep here, and that's the one that works, not the one that comes in a bag from Australia or the United States.
And so in terms of that that Johnson Su bioreactor there, like obviously that is not going to produce enough compost to cover your whole vineyard with on its own, like the compost itself. So how are you going to scale it up, or do you make compost extracts with it?
No, sure. This is not a pile. This is only 1 cubic meter, so it's not enough for 10 hectares. So this is it's not in quantity, it's in quality. What we want here is biology. Not only biology, it also has some nutrients, of course, and humic acids. It's very, very rich. But what we want here is the biology, that because this is made out of shredded wood and some manure from the sheep from my neighbor, and everything from around the vineyards, that it's charged with very good biology, my own biology, the native biology. So what I do is I put it here for 1 year. It's watered every day, so we have to keep the moisture around 75 to 85% moisture.
Okay.
And it's watered every day, and it sits here for 1 year. It's yeah, and then it's ready. Then what I do is this straw you see here is only a mulch. This is not this is not the compost. Is down there. Then I put some worms also to help me decompose. Like five months later that I do it. And then what I do, what you see here is a tank.
Yep.
Those tubes are connected to a pump that will pump air, very strong air, so it's totally aerobic. And what it does is I take some micronized bags, like a tea bag, and I put like 10 kilos per hectare, which is, I have 10 hectares, so it's 100 kilograms to make an extract.
Got it.
And what I do is I let it sit there for 12 to 16 hours. And then I take that water that is then it's filled with biology that was in the compost. Now it's on the water, and I put it in the sprayer. And then I apply it to the soil with I had a machine that I used to have it to apply herbicides. Now what I do is I altered it, and I put some high debit nozzles. And what I do is before it rains, normally before it rains, like 1 day or two before it rains, I apply it to the soil again, and then it rains, and it helps me to all that biology to penetrate the soil, and and enhance life on the soil.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's I think the compost extract makes composting, or this idea that the creating compost is actually just there to create the biology that you then want to put through, essentially make a tea of it, but it's not compost tea, but anyway, make an extract of it. with water, and the fact that you can multiply that up so quickly.
Yeah.
And
then what I do also is when I put it in the sprayer, I also put the fish hydrolysate, some chitosan and humic acids, so that helps all of, and some micronutrients very low, so that the like Graham says it is sending the biology with the lunchbox. When they go to the soil, they will have something to eat to start their lives.
Yeah.
To reply. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
I also have one other machine, one other tool that I use also. I've made a whip and drip. It's a machine. It goes and decompact the soil. It's only 3 whippers, very fine ones that don't disturb the surface of the soil. I do it if I have to, like one time a year or in 2 years, if I have a compaction layer. And I have a tank up on that one, and I have some tubes, and it goes with the whipper and goes down, putting down the biology, also some mycorrhiza and everything I need.
Amazing. Okay, I'm just watching the time, so we're getting to the last 15 minutes here. So I just wanted to, well, firstly, I just wanted to say a little bit about, or for you to say a little bit about, if I just share your final screen, you are now selling your own wine. Let me just share that again. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about how it's worked for you financially as well.
Oh, for sure.
Excellent. Regenerativo. So yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit about financially how things have changed moving for, just briefly.
Well, yes. So the first years it was a bit complicated because I had to wean the plants from the chemicals, and the yields go down. I also had to convert most of my grape varieties because they were high yielding and making not so much good wine. I converted it to only Portuguese varieties for high quality wine. So in the 3 years of conversion to organic, I had to sell the grapes for the same price I was selling them before. So it was not very interesting. But when the conversion period finished, I had the opportunity. Now I can sell the grapes for 3 times the price I was selling them. Yeah, and I have two ways of making money now. I sell the grapes, and I bottle the part of the grapes. I put it in the bottle, and I can value the bottle much more.
Of course.
Much more. And there's another way of earning money is not spending it. So
yeah.
The less inputs I have to buy, and the more things I can do it on the farm, the less money I spend. So right now I am the low-cost producer around here. So.
Perfect. That's a good, very resilient place to be, especially in these times of like very variable markets and things changing all the time. Okay, great. So I'm just going to move to some questions. We have a few questions about the SAP testing. So I was just going to, Carrie Richardson asks, what material is used for the SAP testing? So how do you select the new and old leaf?
Now that's very easy. You take 2 bags. One of them you put the 4th leaves from the shoot tip, the first one that is full developed, and you take another bag and you put the first leaf of down the first one, the oldest leaf. Yeah.
And what, you just collect a sample across the vineyard, so trying to be random within a block, is that right?
Yes, you must know the vineyard, and if you have problems and you have not so homogeneous plot, you go and you take the samples the best you can.
As representative as possible, I guess.
Exactly. So and then you put it in the mail and you send it to the Netherlands. I used to normally I send it in the Monday, and in the Thursday I have the report. It's very, very fast.
Perfect. Great. And then I had another specific question, which was from Alexander Campbell. Is the optimum range on the SAP analysis report, is it crop specific? So are those optimum solely for grape or vines, or how does that work?
Yes, it's very specific. It's only for vines. They have for very, very different crops, and they have those like the goalposts for every plant.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, cool.
These are not specific for vineyards.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, great. So then we have oh yeah, this is a good question. Victor Apollo, does all this nutrition help keep the birds away as well?
Hi, Victor. I know him.
Giving you a hard time.
Well, not really. Well, it may attract some because we have more nutritious and the flavors grapes, so maybe they will come even more. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But are birds a big issue where you are?
No, not really. Not here. Well, there are some birds now that not used to be here before, but for me, it's not been a problem.
Yeah, got it. And then let me have a look. Okay, yeah. So then we also have from oh, and then Victor also asked, how often do you do the tests, the SAP testing? Is it once a month or? Yeah,
no, it's not very regular. It depends on the cycle of the vineyard and the critical points like flowering and I don't know the
Raison.
Yeah, raison. Yeah, I do it before because usually it will need some specific nutrients, like for flowering it will need boron and other nutrients, and I do it just like 1 week before, and I have to act before the raison starts and the flower starts to the fruit, and I apply surgically. So what I do is the normal package is like 6 times in the growing season of the plant. I do one extra. I do one. Usually people do 6 until the harvest, and I do 1 after harvest, so that I can I know what the plant needs before it goes to dormancy, and it goes with belly full, and it will be in the normally the next year it will start better.
Got it. Oh yeah, I remember you saying that you've noticed that your Brix levels, we didn't talk about this exactly, but you've been testing the Brix levels in your leaves, and that actually the Brix levels in your leaves, when they start the season, have been getting higher and higher, and because you've been applying the nutrition before it goes to sleep. Is that right?
Yes. In the first year, I started applying nutrition more seriously. I used to start the season like with 4-6 Brix. And then with the nutrition, and it goes going up and up, and year after, and now last year the Brix is that the Brix you are seeing there before harvest, they were around 17 and 21. So it is very good. And they said the magical number for the plant to be very, very resistant to pest and disease is 12. So it wasn't bad at all.
It's amazing.
And the more you balance the nutrition of the plant year by year, you start in a higher plateau every year. So that's what I've been seeing now.
Yeah, that is amazing, because obviously, like, that's the kind of level of Brix you're looking for in grapes when you're getting up to harvest. Never mind the leaf. So
you have a refractometer, and then you pick with a garlic crusher. You put some drops of the plant sap, and you see the Brix level.
Yeah,
it's very important, because the more photosynthesis you have, the more sugars you have. So the more photosynthesis, the higher the health of the plant.
Yeah. And the more carbon you're putting into the roots, hopefully.
Yes.
Okay, great. So another question we have from Bart Arnst is, are you working towards your cover crop being permanent over time? Do you think that that is kind of the end goal?
Yes, sure. I only see it 2 years, but in different rows. I haven't seen it since. I may have to reinforce it this year, but I'll try to use a different seeder. This one is not a direct seeder. We have to make a strip till of to put the seeds. I'm thinking of using a direct seeder, and I don't even have to till the soil.
Mm-hmm. So you'll be direct seeding into this, because you said this photo you took just a week or two ago. 3 days ago. Okay. Got it. And so why? Sorry.
It's a grape variety called Vinho from Portugal. It's amazing.
Beautiful. Why do you think this is now in a place where you need to reseed? Like, what's having you make that decision?
Well, last year was very dry, and then this year I didn't have enough cover of the soil that I wanted, enough biomass. So I have some cracks on the soil because I have some bare soil, and I have to put even more plants here to connect all that soil, and to pump even more sugars to feed the biology and everything, and to retain more water.
Got it. Okay, great. Okay, so a question from Fran Bailey. Have you noticed anything markedly different in terms of quality or taste profile of the wine since starting these practices?
Well, it's not easy to analyze that. I'm trying to. I want to analyze everything, but I don't have the means to do that yet. But I can tell you that this wine we are seeing here was made from 1 year grapes. They were planted in 2020, and I harvested in the first year. And the critics of wine critics that gave us a rate of 94 points, which is not very bad. So we are very happy. We think that and Abby already tasted it. I think it's enough good wine.
It's very delicious. I forgot that you got it from 1 year old vines.
Yeah.
That is mental. Amazing. Okay, great. And then we've got Jacqueline Moman, who says, how are you integrating livestock in your system? That's a good question. We can take to some other.
Yes, we didn't speak about that.
No.
Yeah. So what I do is in the winter when they're in dormancy, I put, like you see here, I put sheep. Well, it's my neighbor's flock, so it's a win-win situation. He comes with the flock and he feeds the sheep, and I fertilize the vineyards, and I don't have to pass with the tractor, which is very good for me because I don't spend money on tractor time and fuel, and I use it from November to February. And what I do is make a holistic management of the flock. I put the most animals in a very good in a very small area to make more impact.
How do you fence them in? Are you putting an electric fence, or do you have a shepherd, or how do you?
I don't have the means to do that, but I have a very good shepherd with very good dogs, and they don't let the sheep go around too much, and we make the best we can.
Yeah, and so okay, yeah, and so you kind of just start them in one place, and then try and make sure they don't move too much during the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And also, because I've seen you also do use chickens at time.
Well, I do have only, there are just a few, but I in the future I'm going to, I have a project in my head to make the chicken tractors egg mobiles, and to move them around the vineyards, which is very good because it's another income that I can take, because the eggs are very, very expensive now here. Mm-hmm. We don't have almost eggs in Portugal, so it's not easy to find. Well, like 2 months ago, people didn't have eggs in the supermarket. It was stupid.
Wow. Because of avian flu, or
There was a big crisis in eggs in Portugal.
gosh.
And not only that, they also help me fertilize, and the chickens are an amazing animal.
Yes, they are. And just in terms of like, okay, so we talked about the cover cropping, we talked about the nutrition, and then the animals. Those are like three different elements in a way. I guess the fourth element is actually some of the biostimulants or the compost and those kinds of things. Like, yeah, you're 4 years in more or less. And so you got those four elements going. If you were to kind of give someone advice who's earlier in that journey, let's say, or maybe has a larger area, so they can't just implement everything at once, you know, is there an order, do you think?
Well, first thing is no-brainer is cover the soil with plants, cover crops. That's the first thing we have to do to give a boost to the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got it. So cover crops are first.
Yeah, and nutrition next, of course,
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, of course, it all comes together.
There are very good books that you can read that will help you with some recipes and yeah.
Oh yeah, and we talked about maybe we would share your fish hydrolysate recipe for people if they wanted to try and make it themselves. After we can share it in the blog post.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I think, let me just see, I have some more questions always. We've answered all the questions, which is excellent work. We're making very good time here. But I did have a few questions that we didn't get to before. And that was, oh yeah. So obviously you are taking a proactive, health-focused approach. And the idea is that the plants are as healthy as possible. So actually you're not having to apply insecticide or fungicide or anything like that. But what happens when you do still get some sort of attack, or, you know, maybe it's a terrible drought and plants do get weaker for some reason? Like, how, you know, what do you do in those situations?
Well, you have to know your vineyard very well. You have to know your grape varieties very well, and you know that some of them are more prone to some disease attack or insects. What I do is I can apply copper or sulfur, but it's my last resort. What I do, what I try to do is apply plant extracts, and I also make my own yeast. Like Saccharomyces cerevisiae is very good also to not only for nutrition but also to compete with fungus. And it's also a plant immune elicitor that will trigger the plant's defenses. Also chitosan. Yes, it's integrated fight. It's not only one thing. But if I see some signs of diseases, or I know that some grape variety that it's more susceptible to some disease, I will apply the lower weights I can of copper and sulfur, for example.
Yeah. So in the moments that you need to, you can work with your organic other tools as well.
Sure.
Great. Okay, well, I'm going to stop there because it's 9 o'clock. And I'm just unbelievably grateful. Thank you, Sergio, for sharing all of your secret recipes.
Thank you.
And all the things you're doing. It's really brilliant. And I love, definitely encourage people to follow Sergio. You're Sergio Grape Grower, I think, on Instagram.
Yeah.
But we can share those kinds of things with everyone after in a follow-up email and blog post. If you're interested to hear more about Sectomentor, you can always send us an email or a direct message in the chat here with your email, and we'll get back to you, or you can email us at info@vidacycle.com. And thank you so much for joining. It's great to be back here sharing more about regenerative viticulture and people like yourself, Sergio, who are practicing it. And we look forward to sharing more going forward.
Cheers.
All right. Thanks so much. Toodaloo.